Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today. My name is Roxanne Coulterman. I'm the Contracts Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. This is the pre-proposal conference for the Security Study Services RFP number 362-2022-001. I would also like to inform you that this is our first via Teams pre-proposal conference, so please bear with me because I am reading off my notes and I may get tongue-tied or we may experience some technical difficulties. So with that said, on the panel today, we have Angela Skyby-Zagarba. She is our Contracts and Facilities Manager. Eric Williams, our Hub Coordinator. Kyle Wolf, Assistant General Counsel. Joan Kodal is our Information Technology Manager. And Jason Kennedy is our Information Security Officer. If you have not done so already, please scan the QR code with a mobile device or use the link that was provided to sign in. A copy of the sign-in sheet will be posted on the ESBD, Electronic State Business Daily, and Texas Lottery website at the end of today's meeting. This is for sharing of information between prime vendors and subcontractors. This conference is being recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the conference, and we will answer in the order received during the question and answer session at the end of each part. Our Contracts and Facility Manager, Angela, will be monitoring the Q&As. We will review the recording after the conference and restate questions and answers in the Q&A document, which will be released in accordance with the schedule of events. We will give our best response to your questions today. However, any questions we cannot answer today will be answered in writing and included in the Q&A document. Please note, the written Q&A document is our final answer. Following this conference, if you think of additional questions, you have an opportunity to submit these in writing. These are your opportunities to ask questions, and we encourage you to do so regarding the requirements of the RFP. If you are unsure of language written in the RFP and need further clarification, this is your attendance to receive the information you need. After proposals are received, it is then the Texas Lottery's time to ask questions and/or seek clarification if needed. Please note that any oral communication that would alter or amend the RFP as written is not binding. Any and all changes or modification to the RFP will be made in writing and posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website. Now, you are encouraged to check these websites throughout this process and once more before submitting a proposal. Please note that there may be several RFPs posted on the Texas Lottery's website at one time, so be sure that you're reviewing the correct RFP for updates. This RFP is open to any and all vendors who perform the services. To submit a proposal, you do not have to be registered on the CMBL, Centralized Masters Bidders List, B-Hub certified, nor is there any approved vendor list. We will now briefly review the RFP by parts. While we may discuss only certain sections or provision of the RFP during this conference, all sections and provision of the RFP are important, and you should read and understand the entire RFP before submitting your proposal. Again, you'll have an opportunity after each part to ask general questions. So let's begin with part 1, general information. Section 1.4, schedule of events. This section includes critical dates for this procurement. If there are any changes to these dates up to the deadline for proposals, an amendment will be posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery website. In section 1.7, because we are state agencies, proposals are subject to Public Information Act, aka open records. During the procurement process, we will not release any information contained in your proposal. However, after a contract is awarded, your entire proposal is subject to this act and is considered public information. If there is any information in your proposal that is confidential and exempt from disclosure under the Texas Public Information Act, you must mark it as confidential. Examples of confidential information may be financial information or information that you consider trade secret or proprietary. It is important that you mark every applicable page and/or section that you consider confidential, and if possible, mark which exceptions of the Texas Information Act it falls under. The Public Information Act is located under Texas Government Code Chapter 552. Also, on the Office of Attorney General's website is a public information handbook, which lists all the exceptions. If you have information that you consider confidential, please respond to Section 1.7 and list the information, including a brief commentary or justification, in addition to marking individual section and page. Are there any questions for Part 1?
Hi, Roxanne. This is Angela. At this time, there are no questions on Part 1, so I'm passing it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. I will now go over Part 2, Proposal Process. As stated in Section 2.1, I am the sole point of contact for this RFP. All questions should be directed to me, including hub questions. Section 2.4. Questions shall be submitted via email by the deadline in the schedule of events. Responses will be posted on the ESBD and Texas Lottery website. Section 2.5. Proposals shall be submitted in the format subscribed in this section. Proposers have the option to submit proposals either hard copy or electronically. If you submit a hard copy under Section 2.5.1, hand or overnight delivery submission, you need to submit 1 original and 3 copies. The original proposal should be clearly marked as original and shall be bound in a 3-ring binder. The Hub Subcontracting Plan should also consist of 1 signed original and 2 copies. The signed original cost proposal should be contained in a separately sealed envelope as an attachment. If you submit an electronic copy under Section 2.5.2, electronic delivery submission, electronic responses shall be sent via email to procurement@lottery.state.tx.us. The subject line on the email shall contain the RFP name and number along with the proposer name. Please submit 1 signed original proposal, 1 signed original Hub Subcontracting Plan, and 1 signed original cost proposal in a separate PDFs. Each PDF file attachment shall be clearly named. Be sure that your proposal contains responses to all sections and parts of the RFP, and be sure your proposal numbering corresponds of the RFP. You may provide a blanket acknowledgement and acceptance for parts 1, 2, and 3, unless a section requires a specific detailed answer. Parts 4 and 6 require a section-by-section response. That means for our 4.1, we're looking for a 4.1 in your response that corresponds with the RFP. For Part 5, for hand and overnight delivery, complete and submit 1 original and 2 copies of the Hub Subcontracting Plan. This can be in a separate 3-ring binder or folder. For electronic delivery, submit 1 signed original. For hand or overnight delivery, the cost proposal should be in a separately sealed attachment to the proposal containing 1 signed original. For electronic delivery, please submit 1 signed original. If proposers feel a section does not provide a detailed response, then it is acceptable to state that you agree and will comply. Section 2.5.6, the proposer's commitment, Attachment A, and the background information certification, Attachment D1, must be signed by an officer or agent of proposer with the authority to contractually bind the proposer, and the original attachment must include the original proposal. Section 2.5.9. In addition to the printed proposal, you are required to submit an electronic copy on a USB drive and a searchable PDF file of the text portion of your proposal only. Do not include costs. Section 2.5.10. Please note, copyrighted proposals are unacceptable and may be rejected. Section 2.6 covers the format and contents for which your proposal must be organized, which includes letter transmittal, executive summary, either a blanket acknowledgement of Part 1, 2, and 3, or a section-by-section response to Part 1, 2, and 3, section-by-section response to Parts 4 and 6, see Section 2.5.4, a sealed cost proposal attached to the original proposal if submitting a printed version or 1 separate PDF. Attachment A, proposer's commitment. Attachment D1, background information certification. Section 2.7, letter of transmittal. Letter of transmittal must state that the proposal is valid for 180 days, an overview of why your company is most qualified, and include a statement accepting the terms and conditions in Part 3 and/or any exceptions to such. Section 2.8, executive summary. This should be a full and concise summary and not exceed 5 pages. Section 2.10, cost proposal. The cost proposal must be in the format included in Attachment H, either in a separately sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal or in a separate PDF. We only need the one signed original. Disclosure of costs in the body of the written proposal is cause for disqualification. The sealed envelope should only contain the cost proposal. Do not include any marketing material or other information in your sealed cost proposal. The sealed cost proposal is not open or viewed until after the proposal is scored on its technical merit. Therefore, any additional material that are included in the sealed envelope will not be evaluated. Section 2.11. Proposers may submit only one proposal and one cost proposal. Section 2.12. Any RFP changes, modification, or cancellation will be posted on the ESBD and the Texas Lottery's website. Section 2.15, proposals evaluation. Scoring matrix is attachment G, and it will be used for evaluation of proposals in response to this RFP. Please note there are 2 pass-fail categories: Hub Subcontracting Plan analysts and financial analysis. Your proposal essentially goes through 4 phases once it's submitted. 1, initial assessments for compliance and completeness. 2, it is reviewed for financial analysis and Hub Subcontracting Plan. 3, it is reviewed and evaluated for its technical merit. And 4, the cost proposal is open and reviewed. If at any given time your proposal is disqualified, you'll receive notice stating such. Are there any questions for Part 2?
Roxanne, this is Angela again. There are no questions at this time on Part 2, so I'm going to pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Angela. I'll jump into Part 3. Part 3, contractual terms and conditions. This part describes the terms and conditions which apply to the procurement process and which will be a part of the contract executed pursuant to this RFP. Please read over this entire RFP document to ensure that you fully understand and will comply with all provisions. Any exceptions to the RFP should be clearly stated in the letter of transmittal, providing specific and detailed reasons for each exceptions, together with suggested alternative language. The contract resulting from the RFP will incorporate the RFP, any amendments, the questions and response, and the contractor's proposal and the cost proposal. Please note, a performance bond is required under Section 3.35 for the contract resulting from the RFP and is required under the State Lottery Act. Therefore, we cannot accept alternatives. Under Section 3.56.1, the contractor will be required to take the Texas Lottery Cybersecurity Training Program and sign its Information Security Agreement. In addition, Section 3.56.2, Cloud Computing, and Section 3.56.3, Data Protection, are recently new laws that have passed. Please reference Attachment M. Are there any questions for Part 3?
Roxanne, it's Angela once again, and there are no questions at this time, so I will pass it back to you.
Thank you, Angela. Now on to Part 4. Part 4, Required Information. Section 4.1 through 4.5. Although these sections seem brief in the RFP, these sections require proposers to gather, compile, and submit a great deal of detailed documentation. Please read these sections thoroughly and provide all the information in your section by section response. Section 4.6, Conflict of Interest. In this section, you are asked to disclose any actual, potential, or perceived conflict of interest. Please review this section and make any disclosure. Section 4.7, Financial Soundness. The Texas Lottery Commission does a thorough financial analysis of all proposals. Please provide the information requested under this section. If you feel this information is confidential, please mark it as such. This is a pass-fail category on the scoring matrix. It is critical that you provide the requested information. Section 4.8, Background Investigation. Texas Lottery Commission reserves the right to conduct an in-depth background investigation on the apparent successful proposer. Section 4.8.2. A background investigation may be conducted on contractual defined vendor principle. Those who will be directly involved in selling or leasing the goods or performing the service subject to this RFP or resulting in contract. This includes partners, shareholders, officers, and directors who are directly involved. Section 4.8.3. Background investigations may be conducted on vendor employees who meet one or more of the criteria under this section. This contract requires a background investigation of employees on site at the Texas Lottery Commission. Background investigation will include fingerprinting. The apparent successful proposer may be required to complete all forms including attachment E1, 2, 3, and 4 of the RFP by the subscribed time after the written announce of the apparent successful proposer by the Texas Lottery. If you feel the information you are providing in attachment E is confidential, again, please mark it as such. As mentioned before, we ask that all proposers complete and submit attachment D1 with its proposal. This is a certification that your company will not be denied a sales agent license under Texas Government Code 466.155, which is attachment D in the RFP. Section 4.9, Disclosure of Interested Parties. If requested, the successful proposal will be required to fill out a 1295 form with the Texas Ethics Commission. Are there any questions for Part 4?
Roxanne, this is Angela again. There are no questions at this time, so I will pass it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. For Part 5, at this time, I will turn it over to Eric Williams, who will be going over Part 5. Eric?
Thank you, Roxanne. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams, and I'm the Hub Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. I will be covering a very crucial element of your proposal, the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or HSP. If you're not the individual responsible for preparing the HSP, please pass this information to them and recommend they watch the video of this pre-proposal conference, which will be posted on the agency website. The Hub Subcontracting Plan is used to identify both Hub and non-Hub subcontractors that will be utilized under the awarded contract. All proposers, Hub and non-Hub, submitting a response to this RFP are required to submit an HSP. No one is exempt. As Roxanne previously mentioned, the HSP is a pass-fail element of this RFP. No evaluation points are given for the HSP. All proposers must submit an HSP with their proposal, regardless of their subcontracting intentions. Any proposal received not including an HSP will be rejected, and the technical portion will not be evaluated. So it's important to submit a completed HSP with your proposal. Also, during the reviewing process, if it is determined that your submitted HSP has failed, your proposal will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. The HSP process is governed by a rule established by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. Per Section 5.1 of the RFP, you are responsible for reviewing this rule. The definition of a subcontractor is very broad and applies to any third-party vendor used to fulfill a portion of the contract. Our definition of a subcontractor is a person who contracts with the successful proposer to work, to supply commodities, or contribute toward completing work for the Texas Lottery Commission. In other words, if the successful proposer who is awarded this contract is paying anyone who is not an employee to provide goods and/or services, they are very likely subcontracting under this definition. These individuals will receive a 1099, unlike your employees who receive a W-2. Self-performing or self-performance. A proposal who indicates that their company will not be subcontracting any portion of the contract, will be fulfilling the entire contract with their own resources, including its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees. They will be considered to be self-performing. Keep in mind that a pre-existing subcontracting relationship is considered subcontracting, in which case you cannot claim self-performance. A pre-existing subcontracting relationship is a business affiliation your company has with a third-party vendor who is currently supplying your company with goods and/or services and will continue to supply those goods and/or services to assist you in the performance of this contract. If you determine that your company is capable of fulfilling the entire contract with its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, please check the appropriate box in Section 2, which is the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions of the HSP form. Complete Section 3, which is self-performing justification, by providing a thorough explanation of how your company will provide the entire contract with its own employees, supplies, materials, and/or equipment as it relates to Part 6 of the RFP. The scope of service. Also complete Section 4 of the HSP form, which is the affirmation prior to submitting your HSP with your proposal. If you're not self-performing, you will need to proceed with the good faith effort of the HSP. We've identified potential subcontracting opportunities in Section 5.5.1 of the RFP. These areas may or may not be subcontracted depending on the proposer's existing resources, employees, and business model. You are not limited to the list in the RFP. However, if you intend to subcontract any portion of the contract and is not listed, you are responsible for identifying it in your HSP submission. We have included in the RFP a list of hub vendors by CMBL class and commodity description to assist you in finding potential hub vendors. The Lottery Commission does not endorse, recommend, or attest to the capabilities of the company or individual listed within the RFP or on the CMBL Hub Search Directory. The good faith effort methods are for those proposers who intend to subcontract any portion of the contract. The goal of this good faith effort is to actively involve hubs in the Texas procurement process and ensure they receive a fair share of state business. Please check the appropriate boxes in Section 2, again, which is the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions of the HSP form, and perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods. The optional quick checklist will assist you in determining which of the 3 methods you should use. Good faith method A has 2 options. Method A, option 1, this option is for the proposer who will use only Texas certified hubs for all subcontracting opportunities listed in Section 2B of the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions on the HSP forms. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is still an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method A, option 2, which is meeting the specified hub contract goal. This option is for the proposer who will use a combination of non-hubs and Texas certified hubs. However, to meet the specified hub contract goal of 24.3%, the proposer can only count those hubs with which you have contracted with for 5 years or less. If you're going to subcontract and cannot claim method A1 or A2, then you must submit your HSP using method B, which is the good faith effort outreach method. And this is done by notifying at least 3 Texas certified hubs per subcontracting opportunity, providing those hubs with at least 7 days to respond. And this is done by excluding the day the solicitation was emailed, mailed, or faxed to the hub vendor. This also excludes weekends, holidays, and any other day that the executive director of the Lottery Commission has closed the agency. Also provide scope of work for hubs to determine whether they are interested. Providing a location where the specifications are located. This can be done via the link that is posted on the ESBD, or you can have a physical location at your job site where they can also visit or see the specifications. Also, the information regarding insurance and bonding requirements if applicable. Also, in addition to notifying a minimum of 2 minority women trade organizations or business development centers providing the same information as above as the same time frame for the response. Again, this is a second requirement. This is different from the 3 hubs. This is a separate requirement, so you also have to notify the 2 minority women trade organizations as well and give them the same deadline of 7 working days. A mentor may be utilized for your subcontracting opportunity via the mentor protege agreement for the subcontracting if the protege is able to provide the services. The mentor protege relationship may be utilized in lieu of additional solicitations to the hubs. Proposals using this method must perform outreach even for areas where a proposer has a pre-existing or exclusive subcontracting relationship that will be used in performance of this contract. Our evaluation process for proposals received on or before the deadline for proposals is to review and evaluate the HSP and all supporting documentation to determine if the HSP has passed or failed. During our review, we may request clarification of information or representation in your submitted HSP. Again, there are no evaluation points assigned to the HSP. It is strictly a pass or fail element. If it is determined that your HSP has failed, the technical portion of your proposal will not be evaluated. Following the award of the contract, any proposed changes to the HSP must be submitted for review and approval by the agency. A written change approval form will be provided by the Texas Lottery Commission. Subcontracting without prior authorization is a breach of contract. Monthly subcontracting expenditure reports are required as condition of payment. Also, the successful proposer must provide written notice to each subcontractor informing them of their selection. A copy of this notice must be provided to the Lottery Commission no later than 10 working days after the contract award as stated in section 5.6.1 of the RFP. The notice must specify at a minimum the contracting agency's name and its points of contact for the contract award number, the subcontracting opportunity to be performed, the approximate dollar value of the subcontracting opportunity, and expected percentage of the total contract that the subcontracting opportunity represents. To assist you with the HSP, the Texas Lottery provides the following resources and assistance. All vendors are strongly encouraged to take advantage of all the resources. This pre-proposal conference video will be posted on the agency website. A HSP quick checklist is included in the RFP. Proposers have the opportunity to submit written HSP questions up until the date of your proposal submission. However, we suggest you submit your questions early to allow yourself the necessary time to cure any deficiencies with your plan. You're encouraged to start on your plan right away to give yourself plenty of time. The HSP Q&A is posted on the agency website and the ESBD, which will be a rolling document. So be sure to check the date posted. We will review drafts of your HSP to identify deficiencies and provide feedback. However, we will not state whether your draft has passed or failed. We will provide one-on-one workshops upon request. These may be conducted via Zoom, Teams, or telephone conference call. As per section 2.1 of the RFP, Please forward all questions or requests to Roxanne. The last date to review any draft HSPs for deficiencies and one-on-one workshops is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. Again, we strongly encourage you to take full advantage of all the available resources to assist you with your HSP submission. Once you submit your HSP with a proposal, there is no opportunity to cure. Please consult the schedule of events and make sure that you know which dates are critical in terms of preparing and submitting the HSP. In closing, I'll remind you again, if you're not the person who is responsible for completing the HSP, please pass this information to them, as well as let them know that today's pre-proposal conference will be available for view on the agency website. Please submit questions regarding the HSP after this conference in writing, and they will be answered and posted on the agency website and the ESBD. HSP questions can be submitted up until the deadline for the proposals, which again is listed in section 1.4 of the RFP. Also, we have assembled a pre-proposal conference booklet, and this can be found on our website where you find the solicitation. This will be in the fourth block under procurements, and it is listed under to view the Texas Lottery Commission pre-bid proposal conference booklet regarding HSP requirements. And again, it has the same information I covered here, plus other detailed information about the CMBL, and also the information regarding the trade organizations for you to submit with your proposal. At this time, we'll open up to see if you have any questions regarding Part 5 of the HSP.
Hi, Eric. This is Angela. Looks like we have one question. I'll read it for you and then we can respond. If a proposer did not provide subs in the hub plan form, but provided an explanation or reason, will the proposer be disqualified? This sounds like a self-performance.
Yes, if you're self-performing and you do not, let's say, for instance, you look at the scope of service and you determine that your organization or company can do everything in-house, then you do not have to submit any subcontractors. And again, in that case, you will be self-performing, and all you will have to provide is part 1 and 2. You do not have to do any of the good faith effort methods for that.
Yeah, so to be clear, you'll still be submitting a hub subcontracting plan, but you will be choosing to self-perform, and you will have to provide an explanation of how you're doing that.
Correct.
I would encourage y'all to take advantage of the HSP workshops that we offer if you're not familiar with this process or you're not very familiar with this process. The workshops will provide detailed information and help assist you with how you do your business.
Also, Angela, I would also add to that, even though you may have done business with other state agencies, each state agency do their procurement process totally different. So again, we encourage each and every one of you to start as early as you can, and also reach out for any type of help and submit your drafts for review. And if there are no more questions, I will turn it back over to Roxanne.
There are no more questions. Roxanne, it's back to you.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Eric. I will now go over the final part, Part 6. Part 6 is scope of services or technical. Part 6 requires a section-by-section response. I will not be going into details on this section. This is your opportunity to tell us how you will perform the services described in each section. It's not enough to say that you can do something. Tell us how you would do it. Provide examples of techniques that you've used for success. Proposers need to demonstrate their ability to do the work as requested. Are there any questions for Part 6?
Roxanne, I do not see any new questions, so back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. I guess I will conclude this conference with some final reminders. All scope of services questions must be submitted in writing via email to me by the deadline in the schedule of events. Scope of services questions that are not submitted in writing by the time and date specified will not be answered. If you have a question on the RFP process, you can contact me and I will be able to respond. Generally, this is the case for all sections except Part 6, but please do not hesitate to ask. Make note of all dates in the schedule of events. Proposers are responsible for checking the ESBD and the Texas Lottery Commission website for any and all notices, amendments, and Q&A regarding this RFP. We will not directly email these to you. And lastly, prior to submission of your proposal, please review the entire RFP carefully to ensure that you submit all required information and/or documentation. This concludes our conference. Thanks again for your attendance. Y'all have a good evening.